Good morning, everyone. And honestly, it's a great pleasure. Can I be seen? I never thought I was short, right? Yeah, I'm looking at flowers, so definitely I'm kind of short here. Pleasure to be part of this event, especially amidst so many past winners, global winners, and oh yeah. Yeah, that's better, right? I know. This is the first time I felt short. And then you'll wonder how I played for Sri Lanka. Yeah. My jump is a bit better than the height, I guess. Um, but it's a great honor. And when I saw this topic, so Sulo said, Kasturi, you're doing the keynote. And I said, no. Unfortunately, I have to be away tomorrow on some work. So I had to trade with Sulo. You know, with Sulo, it's just a trade and a discussion and no compromise. She said, then you're doing the keynote. So I'm here. Full disclosure, I'm an accountant. So whatever comes from my mouth, I'm not a brand specialist. So you need to take it from more as a consumer and a business leader and a person, a woman who has seen people create brands and grow. And yesterday, I was amongst most of the winners and past winners and the judges who were from the region. And it was amazing that finally I saw there's a thread there. All of them are amazing brands, but all of them are committed and passionate to make women succeed. Testimony is you have Dawn Austin. I call her Auntie Dawn. But she's come here today, and that's huge pressure, right? She says, I'm here just to listen to you. And I'm like, okay. That's something I didn't want. But the story is that women support women, and that's the reason this ecosystem succeeds. So where I come from as an accountant, I think a brand is the cornerstone of every successful venture, business, service, ecosystem, and an individual. And I think that's what makes you distinctly different. It embeds your differentiation, it embeds your personality, it embeds your values. And when it has those three and it's unique, it's consistent, and it's authentic, I guess over years, you create a brand. So I'm going to talk about, so being an accountant and growing up, you can imagine, right? I was not an accountant when I was growing up. I didn't even aspire to be an accountant. I was more a black and white, playful person who was out playing netball or basketball, and I didn't even understand what brand and marketing meant. But I understand it so many years later that it's about consistency, it's about figuring out what's important to you and why you're different and doing that consistently. So I'm going to talk about two brands I saw, and it's not about Eveready Battery, which I grew up with, but I've seen one brand which has grown, and the other brand is and I have a privilege of being the CEO of this company, which grew a 60-year-old brand, right? And where am I going with this? I'm just trying to give reflection of, with these two examples, what really constitutes, in my opinion, how a brand should be, and why it exists, why it gets created. And then the next big brand, and that's, I tested this thesis with 3 winners yesterday, and all 3 had the same, and I didn't even tell where I was coming from, and they had the same aspiration. So I think there's going to be something. Suro has a lot of work in that, though. So the first brand is a service brand. 13 years ago, I got this email saying I'm winning, I had won some award, right? And I didn't know who this person was. I hadn't heard of it. And I thought, okay, do I throw this email to junk or do I accept? And I thought, okay, somebody's taking the effort to recognize me. Let me go there and see what it is. And I went and sat in the audience, and I saw it was not about me. That day I learned about what real women's stories were. I still remember those 2 stories. One was a woman with HIV whose house was burned. She had 2 children, and she got HIV not because she did anything careless. She had a blood transfusion, and the husband left her, and the villagers burned down her house. She took her 2 kids, went to her hometown, started life again, eventually set up her own entrepreneurial business. And she employed other women and people with HIV. And she had a successful business. Second was a widow in the East Coast, in Batticaloa. She had a chain of watchmaking units. And she was a widower. She had kids. She started on her own post the war. And this was her story. And I'm like sitting there and said, whoever this person who's organizing this event is bringing these stories out, and we are supporting other women to succeed. And that day I thought, this person in the helm of this, whichever this organization, she talks a bit too straight, and like you have to get used to it, but she's doing the right things, and she's helping, inspiring people to be better human beings and supporting. So over the years, I saw this organization move from local, and today it's an amazing local brand. It's like the most sought after brand. And 13 years ago, or 11 years ago when I got it, it was a small room of like 25, 30 people in it. The upper small room of Taj. And today it's a great brand. Today it's a global brand, and the brand is WIM. So I thought about these brands, and I thought, what is really, and I'll tell you what the uniqueness is there. The second brand is it's a brand of Hema's. It's a 60-year-old brand. It's called Baby Sherami. It commands over 40% of market share. And it started with, it was a cologne brand, right, and benchmarked with European standards. But it started with trying to solve the problem of Sri Lankan mothers who want to be the best mother, but they couldn't get this affordable local alternative which would cater to their safe and trust they want for their kids. So that's how it started. And eventually, we decided, okay, we're going to solve that problem. So it was been underpinned by safety and trust. And it didn't end with the product. It was, we ended up with teaching a mom how to keep the baby safe. That's from nutrition, from child development. So over the 60 years, we have about 500 clinics. We work with government, doctors, child development authorities, just to help parents be better parents. Today, these parents are more evolved than us. They have information at the fingertips. So that's not needed. So what has this brand done? It has launched its Safe Institute. And the co-owners are moms who help us design, help us test, help us tell whether this product is what passes their safety standard. So these two, and it has evolved to this, morphed into this business, and I'm proud purely because that brand stands for a purpose. And what's common between these two stories? I guess they both went out to solve a problem. WIM would have gone out to solve the problem of recognizing women and empowering women and inspiring them to do better and create this ecosystem to get women out there. Baby Sherami, on the other side, tried to solve the problem of safe and trusted products where the mother would really enjoy, and affordable products, right? Secondly, where was it distinctly different? Sulo's WIM was different maybe because of Sulo. But I guess it was about real stories, about real women, and there was no differentiation or discrimination of women, whether they were from Batticaloa or from Mathura or from Colombo. It was about the story and the impact. She brought everybody onto an equal footing and platform, and that was the differentiation. And of course, Baby Sherami would have been, the differentiation was not only about the product, was making sure that safe and trust meant beyond that, equipping the mother to do much more than that. And the third one is, what are the values? Brands to succeed over time have to have values, and these values should be displayed in how you engage with people, how others see you, and it has to be authentic. It cannot be put on, right? And WIM, I guess, the values were being passionate, creating that ecosystem, and making sure there was transparency. And one big transparency I've seen over years is the process of judging. every time it's independent judges. Today this time around, we had independent global judges, and you have Venkat here, we have Noxie, we've met Dr. Selvaraj from Malaysia. That's the first time I met him. But that independence is brought so that the people who come out have a real story and you can defend it in any public forum. And from Baby Sharami, the values is keeping the baby first and making sure the mother feels good and making sure that we don't lose that promise. So I guess all of these are qualities, and eventually what makes a brand grow is storytelling, right? And because Vim inspired women, women go out and tell stories. And when we tell stories, this inspires other women to either achieve something here, or it inspires women to go out there and support other women to succeed. And that's the same thing for the Baby Sharami. So these are products and service. And it can also, and I think 100% I believe brands lend to personalities as well. And there are two personalities, and I don't want to talk about me. If you ask about my brand, too straight, too strong, it'll be too much of that. I'll talk about, you have Dawn here. She's known as the lady who fought in a man's world, created a business from scratch, and takes Sri Lanka global. Big heart, supports everybody. And on the other side, I have my close friend, Sandra. She's late, I think, because my driver went late. But I thought about her and thought she's like the digital guru globally, won global awards. But today still, if it's for a woman, she's there fighting. Her passion is excellence. She wants to do anything thoroughly. And she'll fight and push, and she might be the most unpopular person during that time. But she also is inspired to get people around her to do better. And that I've learned from her staff. Wherever I meet the staff, I said, is she so tough? No, we love her because she makes us be better. So that's a brand. You can't be equal. You can't be the same. So the young people here get inspired to be your brand, but that should be truly you. You can't be somebody else. It should be embedded in your values, what's passionate to you, and why do you want to be different. In an audit firm, I remember long years back, I was known as the problem solver. Go to Kasturi, she'll solve the problem. That's what, a cash flow which wouldn't balance. That's the biggest problem for an accountant. Not creating brands and wondering where there's market share. We don't have that problem. It's just that the cash flow didn't tally, and Kasturi solves it. But I was also known that I was very competitive, and I would want to exceed in what I did. So those were two brands, stories I brought out as people, because I think that's also important. So where am I going with all this? What should be the next big brand? And personally, I'm talking to an audience which are brands on their own right, at an event which has global brands, people, businesses, and I'm thinking, what problem can we solve? How can we take local to go global? Why do I say that? Is because today's context, we can't run away from today's context from a Sri Lankan perspective, but I think it's universal, except for a couple of countries. We struggle in economic activity. In Sri Lanka, we need more revenue in terms of dollars, and we have to reduce our expenditure as a country. Reducing the expenditure, I don't think none of us have too much of influence on. Let's focus on what we control. That is, how do we generate revenue? So the big, broad statement, export. Take Sri Lanka out there. It's easier said than done. So how can this next big brand do that? So what's the problem when somebody tries to export, right, or go out there? The problem is, A, you really don't understand that consumer. The problem is, B, even if you do understand the consumer and understand the cultural nuances, how do you get market access to those countries? You don't know domestic people, you don't know the laws, you don't know the framework in how you can operate, and the ecosystems. Third one is you don't have a support system which helps you to go and succeed there. So, I mean, with these problems, we sit here, and I went through this last year, because we sit here and look at our portfolio and say, okay, I'm exporting that. Nah, it doesn't work. because that consumer doesn't have the same requirement, or their nuances are not the same. Culturally, they are not the same. But what we need to understand what uniquely is close to their heart. I remember we have a hair oil in Sri Lanka, which is the #1 hair oil. We went to Bangladesh. It became #1. Now it's #2. But we are saying, what more? And somebody said, onion and hair works in Bangladesh because culturally they put onion in your head. And we thought, okay, create something. So the cultural nuances need to be sorted out. So what can this do? What can we do in this arena? So yesterday I met Miriam from Pakistan, who was telling me, I have this idea of doing this. I want to create an ecosystem for South Asia. Then I met, I think it was Praveen from Bangladesh, who is a chartered accountant, who is a winner. And she was saying, I need to create a platform where people can connect, South Asia. And then you have Noxie from Nigeria saying, how can we get Nigeria to come here? People who haven't met Noxie, you have to meet her. And we need you to come to Nigeria. Yeah, Kasturi, we have to do something. And I'm thinking, all these women are passionate. They all want to do something. And they want to do something to create an impact. So what is the next big brand? So what I think you've got amazing amount of passionate, talented people who are brands in their own country, who are brands in their own industry. And what's the problem they're solving? They want to help create an ecosystem for the regions, the borders to disappear, and for people to succeed beyond borders. And they're passionate. Their values are really, really amazing. It's uniquely common. They're passionate. They want to see other women succeed. And what more do you want? And they are willing to. And women with that passion, I think we kind of bulldoze into a lot of things. And we forget about red tape, and it kind of comes out. It can come out in the sense of women are too emotional, too pushy. But I guess if it's a man, they might try to do it more at a slow pace. But the women I've worked with, they kind of get it done. So you have that. Can we create the next brand together as winners, as ambassadors for women in different countries, ambassadors for creating an ecosystem? Help entrepreneurs to solve problems in other countries, or take your products and see whether it works. Help entrepreneurs have market access to each other's country. Support them and kind of mentor them and create this universal ecosystem, which is embedded on values of genuine passion, genuine need or want to see and make an impact to women out there. If we can do that, I think that would be the next big brand, because nobody is able to have this fluid set of great brands floating around the world who are fueled by passion, who want the same thing. Can we bring them back into an ecosystem and say, let's unleash it and let's take local out into global? So that's my theory for the next big brand, and purely because I think Sri Lanka needs it. But the more I talk, I think women in all over the world need it, especially the entrepreneurs. And if you're passionate enough, let's do that. So Sulo, that's all for you and our winners. I think we can do it if we got the heart, let's put our will into it. And all future winners and the young ones here, remember, own yourself, own your values, and please keep your distinctiveness and let it grow. Do not try to be somebody else. So thank you. It was my pleasure being an accountant. That's my version of the brand. Thanks.